at least want to see some type of, I mean, especially if we have records, hopefully you're able to find the leach trench, the depth of it, is it dry, moist, saturated? So make sure you guys are probing. I mean, probing's the easiest way. I mean, it's not the easiest way. It's the toughest way, but it gives us a good description of what that bed is actually going up, digging it up. So that all stayed the same. I did change water level in, pre-hydraulic, post-hydraulic. You guys know tank 1, tank 2. I did put, I know me when I do inspections, sometimes you take it from the riser because the tank is 3-4 feet deep and you can't really read what it is at the top of the tank, which is what we had before. So if you take it from the top of the riser, circle the riser. Tank lid, inlet, some people still look at the inlet. Just circle that. That way we have all on the same page of what we're referencing. Below that tank 1 is your outlet T baffle. Now we know what an outlet T baffle is, what we're looking for. Satisfactory, deteriorating, missing, not observed, and describe it in comments. If it's a baffle, I assume it's going to be concrete. If it's a T, and just circle. Circle what? T, circle baffle, and then circle whatever else you have there. Describe it in comments. If it's concrete baffle, falling apart. Clay, is it clay falling apart? Plastic, you can describe all that. Tank 2 is pretty much the same, although I did add not applicable to tank 2. Sometimes you only have a one-tank system, so circle that. Same thing with the baffle T there. Aerobic treatment device, I put use caution there, just try to have you guys remember to use caution when you're doing that. We don't want you to slug, and the manufacturers don't want you to slug that much water through those. So that's why I put a little note there, use caution. And same thing there, distances, leach wells, leach 1, leach 2. I mean, usually sometimes you have 1 and 2. I actually had a property last month that had 3 leach wells, so it just depends on what you have. Flow rate, straightforward, what's the gallon per minute? And I don't know, some people, and maybe I want to talk about this, some people say they get 10 gallons a minute, 12 gallons a minute. Where are you guys getting that from? I mean, is it coming from a hose? Is it coming from
utility sinks?
2 hoses, 2 utility sinks? Where are we getting these 12 gallons a minute from? Because typically you don't want to slug that much water. I mean, that volume of water through that much quickly. 5 gallons a minute I think would be sufficient, or less. You don't want to. If you put 12 gallons a minute inside a tank, it's going to be stirring a lot of stuff up inside that tank. The tank bottoms, top, everything. So, is there any comments and questions about that?
Yeah, don't you want to know what the maximum is that they could be doing it? So that's why we take it from where it comes into the house. That's where I usually get it from. But then don't necessarily.
Is that what you go off of?
That's going to be the maximum that they could run when they were running it, and that's what the system's going to give wild to it at certain times.
Well, I mean, if you run it through, if it comes out of the pressure tank, it's going to come a heck of a lot faster out of the pressure tank than it is your shower.
Yeah.
I mean, your shower, most of them is going to have those.
Well, take into account, too, is the home not been in use for 2 years? Or if it's occupied right now, you don't want to take 12 gallons a minute into an occupied system right now, because you're going to stir the bottom and the top layers up and put it out.
Yeah, but that's what the problem is with all these mound systems down in our county is if you have a family of mine, there's 6 people, and they're using 3 bedrooms or bathrooms at one time, and the washer's going on, you're whacking that system. So it is the maximum amount of water that can come into the house.
But you don't want to be the cause of damage to that system. That becomes a liability for you.
Yeah, so Jason, are you saying then we should try to limit to 5 gallons a minute instead of something high then?
I mean, if you guys want to do like worst case scenario, write 12 gallons a minute, and then maybe throttle it back.
Yeah.
I think what we're saying, let's just put it this way. Taking into consideration, I don't think we want to be in a place to tell you how to do that.
Yeah.
Taking into consideration,
we don't want
hydraulically
hydraulically over the system either.
If you're going to put 12 gallons a minute in, put it in the lift station, put it in the box.
Yeah.
Or if you're going into a tank that hasn't seen use in 2 years, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with you using the hose inside the lift tank and running 12 gallons a minute. That's not a harm to the tank or those components inside there. Once again, observable effluent discharge, any discharging systems, sand filters, what you see. Is it black? Is it an odor? So that's and the location of that. Where is it? southeast corner of the property? Is it the road ditch? Is it a catch basin? Wherever you see that stuff, over the back of the hill. Black water, gray water, routed properly. I think everybody's on board there. What that all is, what we entail, what we want on that. As far as laundry, we see a lot of laundry going to footer sumps. Now, what you may get confused and may not. If we see laundry going, or we see footer going into footer and laundry water mixing, but it's still going to the septic system, I'm not going to fail that. It's going where it's supposed to, although I will put a lot of things in there as far as footer water, cane codger systems will fail. I mean, because you have clean water going into your septic system. So if you see something like you see gray water, footer water mixing, but it's going to the septic system, I'll say that's satisfactory, but I'm going to put a lot of caveats in there as far as recommending or strongly recommend you reroute that out of there. I'm not going to hold something up, chase something down that's going where it should be.
You kind of switch positions on that a little bit then, because
as far as
footer water being okay for us.
Well, it's not okay.
It's
The
not
problem
okay.
is we don't have time to run after those things. So it really boiled down to practicality for us. And practicality,
If you're passing it, you're not making them put in a separate
not
sewage ejection system.
if it's going where it's supposed to.
Right.
yes. Now, if the gray water's going out to the ditch, so here's the difference. Remember, over the years we've done this, we have whittled this thing down.
Mother Nature water going to something that can't handle that.
What was that?
Yeah, well, let me explain as best I can. You've got two situations there. You got one situation that takes gray water to a ditch, and that's wrong.
Right.
You've got another situation that's taking footer water into the septic system, and that's wrong. But the difference is, one's a public health nuisance, and that's where we've really refined this program down to the bottom line. Is if you're creating public health nuisance, it's got to be fixed. If it's not, we don't. And it's simply, and then we give a lot of caveats, and at the end of the day, you ought to see the stacks of stuff. They're all following up because of all the problems that are being found. We don't have time to hunt down footer water going into septic tanks, and we tell them, you should get this out of there.
But if you've got footer water going into a septic system, you need to be questioning that leaching system.
And then that should be being looked at.
Yeah.
Now you get situation, I'm not saying it's right, but you get situations as a footer drain in sand and gravel, and that footer drain may never hardly see water, and that person may get away with that for 50 years. You get the other guy who's in clay garbage, and they're going to know it. It's going to be evident that day. I don't disagree with anybody saying it's wrong. It's wrong. It's really, at the end of the day, we had to boil this down to public health nuisance, and in many cases, that just hasn't caused that to happen yet, and our ability to follow up on these things.
We got to boil it down to liability too. So.
Well, you report it. I'm saying you report it. You say it's there. We're going to say you should fix it, but then that's the end of it for us. So,
you know, where I think a lot of the problems come in, Todd, is when people have a laundry tray in the basement. They have to gravity to a sump pump, a basement drain, or something of that nature.
Sure.
There shouldn't be an issue with the laundries because automatic washing machines will easily pump 6 to 8 feet up to a standpipe for a septic.
right. Sure, yeah, and that's a lot of times how those are fixed. You have the basement showers, utility sinks, those are sometimes removed. They just say, let's fix this easy. Get those out, install a trap for the laundry, and the job's done. But some people don't want to remove those devices, and then it gets more complicated. So, I don't disagree this stuff should be separated. Our code even says that it should be separated. But when we come down to, I guess I look at it this way, Ohio Revised Code tells us when we are to pursue a problem and when we're not. And that definition comes down to public health nuisance. Sewage on the surface of the ground, bacteria level counts higher than 1030 on an E. coli count, dye surfacing, black water, stinky water, all that's all in there, but it doesn't say anything about footer water that hasn't caused a problem in the system. We're going to tell them it shouldn't be there, and then it's really between buyer and seller to get that taken care of. Yeah.
The septic, the water softener,
Yeah.
I know in the older homes, they went into the septic system.
Sure.
Is it now they are not supposed to go into the septic system? Is that right?
And I'll explain that as best I can, too.
You're going to allow that now?
No, it's not. And if you report it, we'll say it should be removed. It's the same idea as the footer drain. But I want to tell you this little piece over here on the side, because that question's even a little more complicated, because in the state of Ohio, that issue hasn't been settled for 30 years. Because people in some counties will say, it's fine. State of Ohio may say, we're taking a neutral position on this. There are literature, and I'm trying to settle this problem. I've read literature on both sides. Get it out, doesn't matter. So our code says it shouldn't be in there, and we tell them just like we do the footer drain thing, but probably it's probably even less solid footing to deal with that than some other things. Now, certainly the times you really don't want to see it in there is with an aerator. An aerator that has filters on it. We've heard the horror stories of filters being just clogged with the stuff. So that's definitely not a good thing. But the leaching systems, and the other thing is the water use, the type of water softener. Some of these demand ones don't regenerate as often as the old-fashioned ones that regenerated every 2 days. Some of them are more efficient. So you got the gamut of types and variables that will steer that system one way or the other. So we're taking a position you should get it out.
I was get the same question then, where should it go?
Yeah.
I usually tell them the neighbor's yard.
Yeah, that's one good recommendation. Well, we allow them, most people what they're doing is they're stubbing it out the wall into their downspout line and taking it out. They might put a small French drain or a small little leach pit or something like that.
I think where the problem's coming in with the water softeners, Todd, is it's not the hydraulic loading of the system, it's the brine killing the bacteria and the brine deteriorating the concrete components of the system.
Yes.
If, the older systems you find with the softeners, those are the ones that the lids have collapsed.
Yeah.
Why? Well,
anecdotally, that's what I believe. I believe what you just said. You ask the state of Ohio, and they won't say the same thing. So I don't know where they're getting their data from, but I agree with you. Stark County agrees with you. Other people don't necessarily. Jim, do you have something?
Yeah, it's the same thing. If you've got a water softener that's been going through a system for 20, 25 years, you're 95% with the box.
Yeah,
and the bed's
they're
probably
shot.
gone.
Yeah. So they're fixing something else indirectly. Is there any other questions on that?
I mean, we've been on that for at least the past year. I mean, as far as that. So whether you've seen it or not, you've ran in that situation. As far as footer water, we've been doing it that way. Footer water, and we don't get that many where footer water is going in there, but we do get a few. But yeah, footer water can fail a system just as easy as a softener can. Speaking of that, footer discharge location. I did add septic system, and I put exterior sump discharge or exterior gravity. I know some people, I was just planning on exterior being gravity or sump discharge, but some people didn't do that. So I broke those out, so if it is a sump discharge or if there's no sump, then you also have that in the next one. Do they share a sump or is it not after? Is there no sumps in the basement because it's gravity footer and there's no gray water sump, then you're there. System difficult to evaluate. I took the little check boxes off, so just circle what you need there. Inaccessible, dense growth, rain, snow, other, NA, explain. So like I said, we have some people that just literally fill all these lines up, fill these lines up, and they write in the margins and stuff like that. So the more information you give me, the better, as long as I can read it. That's the main thing. Fax copies are kind of hard. Once you scan it in, it's usually easy to read. The third page, pretty much, I think we stayed the same. I think I may have added another line here under other comments, but still the same. Make sure if you have a gray water issue, is functioning properly. Some plumbing is not properly routed in the sewage treatment system, which is a public health nuisance. So if you have a system that's functioning okay, but we have laundry water going to the ditch, check that box there. Because that's been there for the past year now, and I think some people still haven't caught on to that's there. So, and this is the nuisance code that we use. If you want to look it up, it's Ohio Revised Code 3718-011. That states what the bacteria count needs to be. What we're looking for is for nuisances. And the last page, the diagram. Once again, I did shrink this down, but I did add, it should have been there, property address township. That's now on this diagram. That way, if you guys are doing 3 inspections a day, 2 inspections a day, you guys separate these, you guys know which ones are which. And we know which ones are which. So those are there now. Property address, township,